Andrew Jones, then. So you're the MP for Harrogate up to Borough Bridge. I know things have been significantly different, going back, but things are steadying away now. What do you see as the things that are working well, if you like, for the borough, and things that are maybe need some attention and not working so well?
Well, as a borough and as a constituency, we have bounced back strongly from the pandemic, so our local economy is strong. And I'm measuring that by the amount of people seeking work in our area. Last summer, speaking to the job centre manager, they informed me that there were 4 vacancies for every one unemployed person within this town. That is remarkable. So we have a very high level of employment. Certain things have changed. Obviously, the public services are under pressure on catch-up, no question about that. And society has changed during the course of the pandemic. We've seen changes in working practices, more people working from home, for example. So public transport use has changed. I've put a huge amount of my time and effort into improving our public transport over the last few years. But we need now to encourage people back out onto public transport. So there's a lot of things going on within our area. There's one thing I should perhaps highlight as a real issue right now, and that is we're having the biggest local government reform in 50 years. And this is the abolition of all the existing councils across North Yorkshire and creating one new North Yorkshire Council. So Harrogate Borough Council, which has served us since 1974, will cease to exist at the end of this month. And that's with some regret, actually. I spent 2 terms as a councillor on Harrogate Borough Council and absolutely loved it. And I think the council has done a good job if I look back across its decades in office. So this is a moment of some change, and what I have been doing during the course of this period is obviously keeping an eye on the transition arrangements. That has meant liaising with both the existing Borough Council leadership and the existing County Council leadership to ensure we have service continuity. But I'm not in any way opposed to this measure. I think it is right that we have a more efficient local government structure. I would have perhaps drawn the boundaries a little different, but that's a second-tier question. The point about having unitary status will mean more efficiency and more focus upon delivery of good frontline services, and that has to be the right thing.
So do you see any downsides then to the unitary council? Well, it's very easy to see sort of short term because it's going through, as you say, such a massive upheaval. There's bound to be things that are not quite right in the short term, through that transition. Then, do you see any downsides at the moment?
Yes, I think there is risk actually. I'll happily share with you whatever I've been saying to the council officers here. Firstly, we need to see service continuity. So making sure that whatever happens, the bins will still be emptied, that the swimming pools will be open, etc. And where I think things are potentially still to be written, that's where the risk lies, and that is how are we going to organise the devolution arrangements, because otherwise we're going to see decisions taken further away from us up to Northallerton, the headquarters of the new North Yorkshire Council. Well, actually we have an area committee, and indeed the entire council is broken down into area committees. So how are they going to work their local, regional, or their local devolution? Because that local devolution will be doing things like planning applications. That's where there's still some work to be done. The devolution arrangements coming to an area.
And I've sat in on many area committees, and many a topic comes up, and they'll say, and this is the committee doesn't have a vote; it's for information only. And it can be a little bit frustrating because these are the nominated representatives, aren't they, that were put on the North Yorkshire Council. So presumably Harrogate people want those Harrogate representatives to have an influence on big issues, and that can be things like,
and rightly, I would suggest,
things like the transport, things like the gateway change or Otley Road cycleway. The area committee didn't have a vote on that. It was put to them, I think, for information and guidance only.
So I think, I don't want to have everybody sort of with blocking mechanisms in terms of a blocking vote. What I want them to do is work together collaboratively, so they work to make an area better. And I think that the way that the area committees work is going to be really very, very important. The correct principle should be local decisions for local people. So take a decision about a service as near as possible to the point where it will be delivered, and that decision will be more tailored to meet the local need. So that should be the principle they should work under. I'm not saying anything to you, Tim, that I haven't said to the councillors and to the council officers. So how they work that is a critical question. So I do want to see the areas working together. If we end up with lots of different area committees squabbling over transport investment, then I don't think that's going to be a constructive measure. I want to see people work collectively to make our area better. But I think when people come to our area, they like what they see. They like the built environment, they like the services. We now need to make sure that we are fit for the future by working together to get better outcomes for people. So what does that look like? I think from an area committee perspective, it means dealing with planning issues primarily. That's going to be quite time consuming. It's not a small matter. But then making sure that the needs of Harrogate, which are different to, it's called the Harrogate Area Committee, different from the Craven Area Committee or from the Scarborough Area Committee. They're dealing with different problems, making sure that the council is focused upon the correct solutions to the local problems.
And there's also the potential to have a North Yorkshire mayor in place. And I sort of say this slightly tongue-in-cheek, does a mayor for the county, does that give a voice in Westminster, or does it give Westminster more control of the county?
Well, I sincerely hope there's no more control from Westminster. That should be the absolute opposite of what we're trying to do here. I have to say I am supportive of the principle of an elected mayor, but it wouldn't just be for North Yorkshire, it would be for York and North Yorkshire working together. So when I've looked at the mayors around the country, it could be Andy Burnham or Andy Street, or Ben Houchin, or Dan Jarvis. I've looked at people who have made a difference in their areas, and they have taken powers from Westminster. Just to be absolutely transparent, having spoken about transparency earlier, as a minister, I did some of the devolution deals with the mayors, so you can see where I've come from on this. And this is about pushing powers away from Westminster to local people. And when you've got a high energy, very active character driving things in their areas, as those individuals have, you can see the difference that they have made. The most nearest one to us would be Ben Houchin up in Teesside, and he's fundamentally changed the politics in Teesside with much more delivery of things into the area by being a great champion for the area, going down to Westminster, waving a Teesside flag and securing investment and change as a result. And that sort of thing, I would suggest, is a really positive, not a negative thing. So I want to see the role taken up. I want to see the right person in it, and working across all of North Yorkshire and York to take powers from Westminster and then deliver them locally. The precedents around the country are good if you get the right mechanisms, and I think we've learnt enough now to make sure we get the right person and the right mechanisms.
And just moving on to talking more generally, I suppose, about politics. People will kind of fairly glibly say the Conservatives are finished, and it will be a Labour government. But there's a bit of a cliche. They'll say a week is a long time in politics, and as you kind of talked about earlier, well, we're in a different world now with Rishi Sunak and some big wins. Say in Northern Ireland, with the deals there. What's your view on the sort of politics? I know you kind of are campaigning almost like continually, aren't you, or communicating more to your constituents?
Well, certainly it doesn't. I don't feel we're in a general election, because we're not. But we will have a general election in less than 2 years. But if you just think back about how much change there has been in our politics, I don't think you can say that what's going to happen in 2 years is already written, because it isn't. quite the opposite. I think the impressions for Rishi have been so far very, very positive. This week we've seen the Northern Ireland Protocol, the Windsor Framework, and I think that's been fantastic. What a big achievement. And that is testament to his diplomatic skills and to his organisational skills. His grasp of detail is absolutely phenomenal. He is a detail-driven workaholic. I've obviously known Rishi for quite some time because there aren't very many MPs across North Yorkshire, and we all know each other very well. So I've known Rishi for a while, and am a very strong supporter. I think he's absolutely fantastic, a hugely high calibre individual. So I think he can go forward and win an election. But I also recognise that we're a long way behind in the polls. But so far, we haven't actually seen anything from Labour that says what a Labour government might look like. Who knows? They've actually got to come up with some policies. And just saying, send Boris a message, isn't the same thing as having a vision for the country's future. A general election is a referendum on the future, not the past. And I'm very confident that in a head-to-head contest between Rishi and Keir Starmer, that Rishi will emerge the victor of that. But yeah, this is a very turbulent political time. But I do not think that the future is written. Quite the opposite.